Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to episode 55 of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Metzger, the Synthinian comrade of the reptilian race. That's me. As well as a man. And his name is David Reed. Ladies and gentlemen, your co-host, David Reed. David, how are we doing this fine evening?
Oh, I'm doing good. I am ready to rock and or roll, as the kids say.
Do they say that?
No.
No.
A coworker of mine used to say that all the time.
Ready to get cooked, bro.
Yeah, he didn't say that, but knowing him, that was probably one of his interests.
When's Gen A and Z going to bring back the Get Frosty tagline?
Get frosty?
Yeah, bro. I love that. It's a very millennial term, David. You should be familiar with this.
I'm not familiar with that one. There was something I saw, which I haven't had an opportunity to use, but I would really love to.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of a...
No.
I don't know what kind of product it was. Well, I mean, the product was bags for cheese. And the
bags for cheese, okay.
And the name the name of the product was Stay Fresh Cheese Bags.
Okay.
As in cheese bags that help your cheese stay fresh.
Stay Fresh cheese bags.
But somebody presented that. It was some meme I saw a long time ago. Somebody presented that as this is what I'm going to start saying every time I leave a room. So that's one thing that I'd like to see brought into the realm of the culture.
Can you imagine if Mark Zuckerberg goes out and presents the new Meta AI or whatever, and then he leaves and he's like, the last words he say is "Stay fresh, cheese bags," and leaves. Yeah. It was so funny. So I think I mentioned it on a past episode, but the Grammys happened and there was this performance from some dude who I couldn't remember what the song was, but it's "You're beautiful, beautiful." And then he rips off and he's wearing this blue onesie and 70s style sparkly suit.
Oof.
And I did not like his performance. His voice was just horrible. But he was very acrobatic, so it kind of made up for that a little bit. But yeah, Mark Zuckerberg copied that, and he went up on stage in a suit, and then two people went on either side of him and tore the suit off, and he had that kind of onesie underneath. And he sang for his wife for her birthday, which was actually kind of cute. So,
this actually happened and wasn't some kind of AI generated
no,
video?
This is real, David. They had a huge party for her at some venue or whatever, and
Mark Zuckerberg wore a tearaway suit.
And he sang some song. I don't know what he sang, but I saw the clip of him getting, presenting himself in the onesie as they tore his suit off. And sure enough, yeah, he had a microphone and started dancing and singing for the love of his life,
What a world that we live in.
What a world we live in. So,
I mean, I don't know if that's the best timeline or the worst timeline, or maybe it's a mixture of both.
I think it's a lot for the Chad-based jiu-jitsu fans that like Mark Zuckerberg, who've seen him. He's like, man, he's on a journey, bro. He's getting disciplined, and he's getting a tan, and he's getting swole. Oh, man, and he's love for his wife. Oh, my God. The stands, I guess I should say, for Mark Zuckerberg are getting more frequent, especially as we head into the era that we're in with the Joe Rogans and such.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost because everybody always made the joke that he was an alien or a robot or a reptilian of some sort. Mm-hmm. It's almost like
a Synthinian or whatever.
It's so weird now that he's become a normal human now.
Yeah, he's actually kind of normal.
That's maybe what's driving all this excitement is that Mark Zuckerberg is finally a person.
As normal as a special person can be, we'll say.
Well, I mean, whatever his eccentric tendencies aside, I mean, he is acting like an actual person now.
Yeah.
As opposed to, Mark Zuckerberg of the past, which like even just raw, unedited footage of him, he looked extremely synthetic.
Yeah, have you ever seen the hearing where he was talking about net neutrality and they had him speak in front of the panel and stuff?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he looked very pale, very nervous, like a reptilian, basically. And I remember watching that years ago. God, that must have been like 8 years ago now. I think it was 2017 or even longer. So
I think it was around 2017, 2018, something like that.
I remember my computer science teacher was like, well, did you guys see Zuckerberg in front of the Senate? He handled himself pretty well. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess so. I didn't watch it, but I kind of tempted to go back and watch it and see how awkward he was and pasty and white. You know, pasty and white, special blue suited,
much like us, pasty and white,
and except he hasn't gotten the beards. We have the beards, so
yeah.
If you have any comments, concerns, thoughts, or hate mail about Mark Zuckerberg, we'll gladly take them. Please send them our way to snarpfanglepod at gmail.com, or you can just text Jake. All right, David, here we go. Man, am I just wiped out today, let me tell you. It's been a brutal last couple days. Well, not brutal as in it's been a lot of work, but it's been a good time. But man, it's been busy.
Would you say that you have been a brutalist these past couple of days?
Yeah, sure.
I had to slot that in somehow. I saw, I think it was, who was it?
Adrian Brody.
No. Matt Walsh. It was Matt Walsh talking about how he just saw The Brutalist and he thought it was a total waste of time. Apparently it wasn't his movie.
Yeah. I'd expect that from Matt Walsh. Let's be real. And kind of big Academy Award nominated film, you know. So it's probably not for Matt Walsh. Let's be real.
It's probably not for most people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of films, actually, that we that aren't Academy Award winning or nominated or will never ever be, you need to watch Reagan with Dennis Quaid.
Oh yes.
It's actually pretty good, and he's got a really good performance in there as Reagan. Like I was very impressed. It's a good film too, and of course John Voight, who's in every like conservative film, basically is a Russian KGB guy. Retired, you know. But dude, they make like super big makeup. They make him look super young with this makeup, like a gobs of makeup on him in a flashback sequence. And they drew eyebrows on him like in dark marker Sharpie or whatever. Like it's like, whoa, John Voight is now super emo and a Russian. So you know, we got something out of this timeline, David. As we
there's worse things you could be than a Russian emo.
Yeah, would we want John Voight being a far lefty emo guy at 98?
Not many worse things, but there's some.
And or do we want him or along with Mark Zuckerberg being the way he is now, or do we want to swap those? I think an emo Mark Zuckerberg could be a little dangerous, you know. So David's giving me the eyes because I called him emo earlier today. So
you insinuated that I had an emo phase.
Yeah.
And I know you did that just because I'm a millennial. And you somehow think that all millennials were emos at some point. Many millennials were emos at some point. I was not one of them. I never had any.
Well, there's a difference between emo and goth. I was
also
goth.
not one of those either.
You don't want to say the word goth? You just say one of those?
One of those.
One of them people.
What are those?
What are those?
Yeah, no, I was neither. Not to say that I didn't have my own period of, being depressed and, hating myself.
We all get there.
But I did not express that self-loathing in the form of, wearing black eyeshadow and listening to My Chemical Romance. I did not express my self-loathing in that way.
I feel like the more I learn about life and meet people, I feel like those emo phases or subtle goth phases that they go through sometimes manifest later on in life, David. I've met some late 20-something-year-olds where they kind of embrace all the nose piercings, the big earlobe, and very, tattoos and everything. But I mean, I'm just describing your average Northern Californian here who lives in a big city. So, nothing wrong with those people. It's just,
I mean, there's something wrong with them.
I feel like there's something where in their brain where they're like, I miss those days, or I never had those days. I was a little too awkward to express myself in that way.
Yeah, well, there's something wrong with them, but I mean, not anything more than, is wrong with any other person in today's culture. Yeah,
most assuredly. With that blessed assurance of some teenager will get a little dark some days. So, anyway, yeah, I'm so tired. Okay, dude, I got to tell you about this crazy weekend before we get into it. Okay, Friday morning, I go and train with my boss on the water truck. Do that for like 5 to 6 hours, right? Get back, take like a quick cat nap, and then go to the youth night. And then Saturday, wake up at like 7, and then we go to the anime convention. Me and Lexi go there. I took her for her birthday. It was really great, really fun. We found a bunch of 3D printed stuff that everybody was selling, really great. Found a 3D printed Palpatine Buddha, which was very unique.
And cursed.
And I can't remember who I showed it to, and they immediately responded with Wood Smash, and I can't remember who that individual was. I want to say... it doesnn matter. Somebody said that to me.
So when they said Wood Smash, was it in delight or in disgust?
I kind of in between.
Well, I mean, there's two different...
Oh, it was Richard. That was it. It was Richard. I showed Richard. He's like, Wood Smash. Yep. And then the conversation moved forward after that.
Yeah. Well, he probably meant to say it in this sort of ironic way, as in he was somehow delighted with that. Yeah. But knowing him, I think his actual impulse would be to literally smash it into pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it was pretty cursed.
It was pretty cursed. So it's kind of like, it reminded me of the Rock Eevee. You remember seeing that? Like the Eevee Pokemon, but it has the head of the Rock.
Yeah, no.
Very
no,
interesting.
No,
Very
bad.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that happened Saturday. And then Sunday was church. And then Lexi's birthday get together. And then Holly, one of her best friends, surprised her by flying back from Wisconsin. She's at like a college or whatever. And she called me this last week and said, hey, I'm going to fly back and going to surprise her. And sure enough, she showed up in the afternoon and boom, surprised her. And it was very nice. We got on camera. So, and then Monday happens, and Monday's Monday. So here we are. So anyway, that was a crazy weekend. So it was a lot. And I didn't realize it until today. It was a lot. So I'm tired. Anyway, David's just a spry young chicken right now. So we're going to a spry spring chicken, what have you. So anyway, today's topic, as we get into the podcast, finally, is television, David, that we feel nostalgic for. And we were thinking about a couple different topics, but we felt like TV, there's some pretty dang good things we grew up watching, and we feel a little fuzzy about, if you know what I mean. And little tingly feeling goes through our brain when we see them on the television, or we see the title somewhere, maybe on YouTube, maybe on cable, DirecTV, what have you. And you say, oh, I remember watching that show. Let me watch that show right now. What episode is it? Is it this episode? And the such. And so I wrote down a couple I grew up watching, and then I have some honorable mentions and also some ones I'd like to watch in the future. But I'm going to get started with my first pick, and then we'll go back and forth. How about that? And David is nodding yes. So, all right. So, my first pick in terms of nostalgic TV is Home Improvement. We got the 1990s. We got Tim Allen, who just had his hit special that kind of made him a very small cultural icon, enough to earn him a television series. It was going to be called Tool Time, and then they changed it and decided, it'll be about a show named Tool Time, but it'll be about the life of Tim Allen. And what are we going to call it? Home Improvement. And so, thus, the show was born. And I couldn't tell you when it ran to, but basically, in my house, I actually took a picture of it too when I got home today. I went over to my parents' place, and I grew up with a lot of DVD collections because my parents, I was born in 97, so I didn't get to watch the show on television or on syndication, I should say. However, I did watch, I think we had the first 4 seasons on DVD, and it was a very great, just fun show to watch as a kid and growing up and sticking into the DVD player. And there's some I watch in syndication, which I will mention later, but I'll tell you what, this show, I mean, I think it's mostly part for Tim Allen because of his comedy, and I like his style. It's kind of gruff and manly, and that's kind of his shtick, You don't really see a whole crazy amount of it in Toy Story, but Toy Story kind of exploded his career. Like, Tom Hanks was really super popular, right? And so was Tim Allen. However, when Toy Story came out in 95, it kind of just made them mega stars. Like, they were already movie stars, but now they're mega stars. And so then it carried forward after that. So anyway, growing up watching the show, such a great, wonderful 90s television. Can't remember the chick who plays the mom, but I think she's a highlight as well of the show. I think the characters especially. You got the classics like Wilson, who gives advice to Tim. Because the show's basically about this, for those who haven't watched it, it's about Tim Allen, who just goes by Tim in the show. He's the dad of a family of 3. Or, let's see. Yeah, 3 kids. And sure enough, he has this show where he sells tools on some Detroit television station, and then you see his home life as well. And a bunch of comedy ensues because pretty much he doesn't know what he's doing a lot of the time, or he gets a little carried away with his tools and his comedy shticks that he carried over from his special, like more power and grandma driving with the wheel over her head. And you can actually find his first big special on YouTube, and I watched it. And so it's hilarious. It's so funny. And it's also very much of the time. Like, I don't think there's some things you could get away with saying in there today, but that's just part of the special thing of comedy. I mean, if you go into anything past probably 2010, you can see a lot of stuff that's just super great and funny and hilarious that, is not really approved of everybody. That doesn't matter, but that's because that's what comedy is, and it's lovely. So, David, before I continue, are you familiar with Home Improvement? Have you ever watched it?
Oh yes. I watched it a ton growing up. You mentioned not knowing the name of the person who played the mom. It's
I can look it up, I think.
It's like, well, it was like, I know it. And then as soon as you said it, I was going to say it, and then it
left.
Blanked. It just left. Went away from me. It's like, I think it's Patricia something.
It's Patricia something. Here we go. Oh, I had it right there. Patricia Richardson.
Yes. Okay. That's actually what I was thinking. And I was like, but for whatever reason, it sounded wrong. But no, that's who it was. Yeah, I don't know. I watched it a ton growing up. Just because my dad was he was kind of what you'd call a sort of jack of all trades, sort of handyman kind of a person.
Yeah.
Like, he was an excellent, I say was as if he's like, dead or something. He's not. But like,
growing up, he was.
Yeah, he was an excellent auto mechanic. And he was an excellent auto mechanic, and he also dabbled in pretty much every sort of like kind of handyman sort of work you could think of. Electrical, carpentry, plumbing. Just, he was automobiles were his specialty, but he was kind of like sort of like was proficient in pretty much every area of like repair and all that. So I think so he really liked the show, so he put it on a lot. So I ended up just watching it a lot as a kid. And Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's definitely like when I was a kid, I was like, I didn't dislike it, but it was like, this was like, it was a show that got put on because, Dad liked to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't seek to put on Home Improvement. But looking back on it, I definitely have fond memories of watching it. It's a really fun show.
Oh, man.
Like if you can, sort of deal with the 90s sitcom cringe.
Yeah.
Like if you can get
past whole Full House and The Nanny, then you'll be fine here.
Yeah, if you can get past that 90s sitcom cringe, then it's quite entertaining.
Yeah. The series ran from 1991, according to IMDb here. It says 1991 to 1999, ran for 8 seasons. I actually went and bought all 8 seasons off eBay, and I got it for like $70 on eBay. Now, the kicker of this was the 8th season, like second disc or some random like that, was the disc wasn't finalized or something like that. I couldn't watch it at all. So I actually bought the 8th season not by itself, and then I fixed the issue. But after I bought it for $70, like I think it was right as COVID starting, and right afterward, like a year later, I checked it and it was like at 280.
Dang.
So it's probably come down at
what
this
a
point.
Jump.
Yeah, it's probably this underneath that at this point, but I think I checked it last year and it was like 100, maybe 120. So not too bad. Like I think paying $100 for the whole show, 8 seasons, that's worth it. That way you can have it. And I want to look up where to stream it, but it's interesting also, real quick while I look that up, Tim Allen. So everybody that was in all 203 episodes, you have Tim, Wilson, the guy who's Wilson, Tarano Smith, who plays Mark, Zachary Ty Bryan, who's Brad, Patricia Richardson, who's the mom, Richard Curran, who's Al, were in all 203 episodes. And then...
Wait, was Jonathan Taylor Thomas not in all?
It says only 181. For some reason, which I remember because for some reason I remember him being missing in quite a few episodes, just as I'm watching it.
I mean, I never sat down and watched the series back to front, so I may have missed something. But I'm
surprised. I thought I don't remember him
being in.
I'm surprised Al's in every single one.
Well, I mean that makes sense because Al, Richard Karn's character, was Tim's co-host on the show Tool Time. And what's really funny to me is this is just another example of like sitcoms that star known comedians. Like they always their character has their own first name but a different last name. That always confused me.
Yeah, I'm very confused as well.
I mean, it's like what was the last name of the family in Home Improvement? It wasn't Allen. It was Taylor. Yeah, it was Taylor.
Yeah, it was Taylor.
Because he was Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah, Tim the Toolman Taylor.
So yeah, it was just so weird to me to see shows that clearly are clearly riding the star power of a known stand-up comic, who usually was turned actor in some kind of way. Capacity at that point.
Yeah.
Already. And they make a point to name the character after the comic who's playing them, but then they change the last name. It's always very so weird to me.
Yeah. I think it's funny because you look at stuff like I think whatever Martin Lawrence's show was, he was called Martin, and that was it. And then I think that was a different last name. And then also King of Queens, you had Mr. Paul Blart, can't remember his name, Kevin James. And I think he was a different last name as well.
I don't remember that show well enough, but like
King of Queens.
Did you ever watch Reba?
Yeah, I did watch Reba.
Yeah, so it starred Reba McEntire. She wasn't a stand-up comic, but like it starred Reba McEntire, and she was named Reba in the show.
Just call her Reba, yeah.
But she had a different last name. Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah, I think that went on for like 4 or 5 seasons or something crazy like that. So, yeah. But yeah, Home Improvement, I want to say, so I grew up watching the first 4 seasons. And that's all we had. And that's all my mom had in her like DVD collection. I can show you a picture of it, David, as we get along here. It also might be somewhere along in one of these highlights. But anyway, yeah, let me tell you, it was this DVD cabinet I'm showing you right now that had all the live action shows and series in it. You got like the young Indiana Jones adventures in there. You got Wonder Woman. You got all the Stargates, early collections of SNL. Just a bunch of random stuff in there. And I would go through and watch some stuff. Growing Pains is in there. Perfect Strangers is in there. Actually, Perfect Strangers is I used the theme song to intro Steven on our Follow Anywhere Peak Analysis, where it's the song's like standing tall on the waves of my dreams, or whatever cringy 80s like lyrical stuff's going on in that song. But anyway, I love that song. It's in all its ages cringe. But yeah, I then purchased the other seasons later, and I just watched a bunch. I think I watched beginning to like season 7. Like I think I stopped middle of season 7, and I was almost done. And that was like 2021 or whatever, like a couple years ago. But man, let me tell you, it was a fun time. And my parents always said, we didn't like season 5 and 6 and et cetera and whatever. And I'm like, okay, and I got, that's basically their answer whenever we were missing something. Like, oh, we like the first season, we don't like the rest. Same thing with SNL. Oh, the first 4 seasons are great, or the first 3 or 2 or whatever. And we don't have the rest because they get real nasty later on. When in reality, if you look at season 1 and 2, they get pretty vulgar.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty consistent.
Yeah, so I don't know what they were. I think they're just saying like, hey, that's why we don't have them, so whatever, you know. But then there's like, oh, we have season 1, 2, and then 4 of this random show. Oh, season 3, I think my mom would say, oh, we just season 3 was not good, you know, and then we just didn't have season 3, you know. So
that's funny.
It was funny, and so that's why I grew up watching it, and I love this show so much. It's so fun. It feels like a little warm blanket when I wrap my mind around it and watch it and sit down and just have a grand old time. And for those curious about watching it and giving it a shot, it's on Apple TV to purchase, but it's also on Hulu and Netflix to stream if you really want to go out of your way, and Disney Plus. So it's like, pick your litter. It's on all of them. So God bless the whole rights holders. I'm sure they're making some of that dough. So anyway, you can watch, starting on March 4th, you can watch it on Plex for free, David. That's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific to our time. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. on my lunch break, I could watch some Home Improvement. Or I can just watch my ripped MP4s of it. Anyway, delightful show. What was your opinion on Wilson, by the way?
Wilson,
yeah.
He was a good character. He was kind of like your, because every good story has some kind of like, sort of some character that the protagonist can learn lessons from. And Wilson filled that role pretty nicely. His sort of back and forth with Tim over the backyard fence was like, it filled the role of imparting wisdom to Tim, but it was also entertaining because like just clearly Wilson's like knowledge about life and the world in general far outstripped Tim's, and Tim often comically misunderstood the lessons that Wilson was trying to give him. Also you had the whole like weird mystery angle, where you could never see like the lower half of his face.
Yeah. That was a funny shtick that I don't know what it is. I don't watch any modern TV shows that are released nowadays. Not a whole lot, and also it's very different. But also, there's not that many funny little shticks like that, or cute little characteristics you find about, just in modern television, I would say. You don't have, he's just some guy we know. And then, there's this mysterious thing about never seeing the bottom half of his face for some reason, Yeah. It's just, I find it really funny. And also I was thinking about this as today, and I think it's funny if you watch each episode accordingly, and a lot of series do this, so it's not anything new, but they all have a formula every episode. And basically I'd equate it to the hero's journey. Every single Home Improvement episode is the hero, Tim, trying to get the winning approval of his love, also known as Jill, and also trying to go through his journey of life, managing, whatever. Maybe it's the show, maybe it's the kids, it's whatever finagling little disaster that happens associated with one of those things, or his wife, or what have you. And then at the lowest point of his character in each episode, he goes to seek counsel from Wilson, our old wise sage character. And then the episode ends, and well, then there you go. Most things are resolved. There's a hug and a kiss and a I'm sorry and I forgive you. And then episode ends pretty much. But yeah, it's just some of that wholesome 90s love that, it's just enjoyable, and you don't see a whole lot nowadays, and you kind of have to open up a time capsule to go back to. So, but I think honestly, that's the strongest part of the show is Tim's faults and him finding a resolution at the end. I think that's the strongest part of it. Like him just being a blundering, not stupid, but he makes a lot of mistakes and thinks he knows a lot. And then he gets humbled. And I think that's probably the strongest part of the show for me. And the thing that I really like about it, as well as I think the weakest part of the show, David, and hear me out, or at least I want to hear what you think, because I think the weakest part of the show for me is honestly the theme, the opening. I think it's not very catchy. I don't sing to it. It's nothing special. It's kind of just, okay, the episode's starting, and it's kind of like abrasive, and then we're in it.
Well, I mean, it's
kind of different for the time.
It's kind of the thing. It's kind of.
It does have those 90s flutes in there.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that, like, in that time period, they're like, they're like they're trying to do something different with it. Mm. You just wouldn't have, like, you don't see anything like that now, but like you wouldn't have necessarily seen like anything like that then. And also, it's just had a lot of fun little details in it. Like, I'm pretty sure the entirety of the opening is stop motion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
In fact, now that I think about it, it's very, very similar in tone and feel to certain sections of the music video for Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. Yeah. So I don't know this for sure, but now that I'm thinking about it, they were probably influenced by that. And that's probably why it feels so weird is, having a 90s sitcom about a hyper macho blundering dad, who works with power tools. And then your opening scene is influenced by Peter Gabriel. Like, I can see how it would have, felt really weird compared to the rest of the show. But I never had any problems with it. Mm-hmm. But you're right, it is kind of like tonally distinct from the show itself.
All right, so the song in the opening is called Iron John's Rock, and it was written and composed by Dan Folliart.
I don't know who that is.
Whatever. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I think it's just it kind of fits with the show, but it's also, I think it's kind of different from other television of the time. Like either it's a really cheesy 80s song that was custom made for the theme, or it's some kind of also cheesy late 80s song like Full House. Everywhere you go, everywhere you know. It's like really kind of dumb in hindsight, stupid with maybe 1.5 O's, And then I don't know. I think I like the theme actually. I like those 90s flutes. It was so funny. So it was funny how you were watching the show you'll probably bring up later on as I got home today. But on the way home, David, randomly I was in my Spotify liked playlist, like all my like songs, and it was just on shuffle. And sure enough, as I pull in the driveway, I hear dun, 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 and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. We're meant to record this podcast tonight. So it was the theme, just randomly on there.
That's funny.
So yeah, check out Home Improvement. It's a classic. Speaking of classics, David, what's your first pick for a nostalgic TV show?
Well, I guess you mentioned I was watching it earlier, so why not get right into it?
Yeah.
Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Woo!
Yeah, this is a show that I watched a lot growing up, and it was specifically one that me and my dad both watched together, like all the time. Like it wasn't really a show that the family watched together, but it was a show that he and I would watch together quite often. So that's probably a big part of the reason why I'm so nostalgic for it. But yeah, other than that too, you know, I've always been a huge fan of sci-fi for as long as I can remember. And, you know, The Next Generation is, despite being, you know, a low budget 80s to 90s TV show, like, you know, just being a kid in the 90s, like those sorts of, like you could really, it was one of those things where it was just easy to have that suspension of disbelief, you know, because everything was done well enough, designed well enough that you could have that suspension of disbelief and just sort of kind of immerse yourself in the world. Yeah, it was just really, really fantastic sci-fi. You had and then of course you had Patrick Stewart as the stalwart Jean-Luc Picard.
Shakespeare himself, Jon Stewart.
John Stewart.
Excuse me, Patrick Stewart. Man.
Yeah,
What?
different
That's
Stewart.
the Black Green Lantern, which will actually come up with my next
The
pick.
Black
But anyway,
Green Lantern is named John Stewart.
Yeah.
But
Not the Jon Stewart, the comedian, but Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern of Earth, who's happens to be black.
So what did they dye his skin for the movie or something?
What? For what movie?
Because he's not black in The Daily Show.
Oh. Well, you know what, David? Here's the thing. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood, David, that they don't talk about. I recently saw a clip of Ariana Grande saying, sorry, you're going to have to remind me. I just got back from the Sunshine whatever, like, clinic, and they erased my memory. So things are a little fuzzy right now. And this is a real clip you can watch just from the Academy Awards that just happened. Apparently she went to some Sunshine clinic, in quotes, and got her brain erased.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe that, in connection with Jon Stewart, maybe they had to dye his skin white for The Daily Show, David. And it's not the prettiest way to dye it, we'll say.
No. Anyway,
how did we get
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, that's his name.
As the captain. Now, like, this I think really makes the show kind of stand out because in the previous Star Trek series, the original series, you had blah, 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 blah.
Kirk Cameron.
William Shatner. I can't believe I forgot William Shatner's name for a second.
We have Jon Stewart, Kirk Cameron as the Star Trek leads.
Yeah, so you had William Shatner. And
Patrick Stewart.
He was just like, I mean, if you know what William Shatner's like, you know he Shatnerizes every role he touches. Mm-hmm. And Captain Kirk was no different. Mm-hmm. And while his I mean, he was entertaining as Captain Kirk for sure. it's, to me, Patrick Stewart was kind of like the essential element of Star Trek, and that's what made kind of the thing that really made Next Generation, I think, so much better to me than pretty much any of the other ones. Is that just that what do you call that gravitas? The gravitas that he brings to the role is quite unique. You don't really get like TV show actors who can bring that sort of weight and depth to a character very often. So, especially back in the 90s and the 80s.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, yeah, that was definitely one of the...
Except for Danny DeVito in Taxi. We'll just put it there, you know.
Well, TV show.
Yeah, it's a TV show.
Taxi?
Yeah. The show with him and Doc Brown and a bunch of other folks, you know.
Was this before he was in movies? I've never seen the show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's called Taxi. It's about just him running a taxi company, and he's like the angry boss all the time. There's a bunch of random kooky characters that go through it too.
Wow, that's
it's in the 70s.
I might have to check that out.
Yeah, you'd watch that and Cheers along with it.
Interesting. So. Yeah, I've never seen that. I've seen Cheers, but never seen Taxi. Never even heard of it.
Speaking of Cheers, would you consider Kelsey Grammer or Frasier being of that same caliber as Patrick Stewart? I think that's the closest I can think of at the moment. But
yeah, he definitely brought a sort of gravitas to his roles as well. But his was more like his was a little different. I mean,
it was more like everyman a little bit. But...
Well, Kelsey Grammer, I wouldn't call him an everyman. He was like he had sort of. He brought depth to his characters, but it was like, it wasn't very serious.
No.
It was kind of like, he was kind of making a mockery of
the sophisticated type, I'd say.
Like he was kind of like, essentially the joke was that his character is really serious and grave, but he did serious and grave in a really kind of kooky, almost comic way, which I enjoy for sure.
Yeah.
But Patrick Stewart is a little bit different. Just like everything about Captain Picard is like, he kind of like the drama of it all kind of hinges on mostly on how convincingly like he can sort of react to it and display the emotions and the sort of things that the character actually would be feeling in the heat of the moment, kind of a thing. Yeah,
Next Generation's, I remember watching years ago online some clips, because I remember watching it back in the day on TV just through reruns. And because I don't think we ever had the money for the big DVD collections, or I don't even think they had big collections for that at that point. Like we're talking early 2000s here. They might have, we just never had them. And I remember watching it and I'm like, some of the stuff is very enticing, the show. Like as a kid, when I was a kid watching, I'm like we would get to some of the end of the episodes and I'm like, holy cow, like this is like, yes, it's intense, but it's very captivating. And I remember some episodes actually standing out to be, at least from what I remember, this could be definitely most likely roasted in glasses, but even like on par with like drama in a movie. You know, I remember vividly watching an episode in the living room, and it was some episode that had to do with timelines, and Jean-Luc met another Jean-Luc from like another year or maybe like a couple hours ago, and they were working together to try to get back to each timeline. And they were in the Enterprise, and it was really interesting. And I just remembered that I think it had something to do with Q as well, and who's a recurring villain. And man, just some good times sitting down and watching some Next Generation. It's always also randomly on the Sci-Fi Channel. Nearly every, at least back when I was watching TV, it was every day. It was on. There's a portion that was just Next Generation.
Yeah. It's funny to me that you're talking about timelines and Q in reference to a specific episode, and that's
is that nothing to do with Q?
That's like a theme of several episodes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Like there's all sorts of episodes about multiple timelines and Q coming in and messing up. But like that's another thing. The storytelling, the writing was all done very well. Just the drama of it all was done very well, and like the storylines were rather inventive too. Like they always kind of kept you on your toes. There weren't any like outright stinkers, or at least not that I remember. I mean, obviously there's some episodes.
What about the one in the 40s?
Some episodes were better than others, but some episodes were better than others, obviously. And there's the standout ones like I want to say, I just looked it up too because I keep wanting to say it's All Things Considered, but it's not All Things Considered. It's the finale. It was a 2-parter. What is it? All Good Things. All Good Things. Yeah. That was a standout. That was a multi-timeline episode too. I also featured Q. Like that was just to give you the audience a sort of taste of the kind of things that happen in the Star Trek universe. If you aren't aware of them, this episode featured, because the start of the series, the very first episode, sees Picard stepping into his role as the new captain of the Enterprise. Like this is the first time that all these characters have met and served on the same ship, and they're ready to go on their first mission together to Farpoint Station because of a distress call. And what ended up happening is Picard gets like sucked into an otherworldly dimension, and Q appears and says that humanity is on trial and that we're going to exterminate the species, basically. And so then they go through the events of the episode, and by the end of the episode, Q reappears and lets Picard know that he passed the test, basically. Like for whatever reason, the Q chose Picard at that moment in time to be like, this is okay, we're going to pay attention to humanity because they're expanding and into the galaxy at an increasing rate, and we're going to use this moment in time to see if we want to continue to allow that or not, because the Q are a powerful, race that exists in a dimension beyond ours, that basically they watch over the affairs of the galaxy, kind of a thing. But so you had that, and then the way Q appears is he's like wearing this ornate costume. He appears like floating in on a throne, but then later in the series he appears just wearing a Starfleet uniform. But then in the finale, Picard once again gets sucked into that alternate dimension, and Q reappears in the same way he did in the first episode. And he's telling Picard that humanity is going to be extinct. And Picard's like, I thought we passed the test. And he's like, Q's like, no, I'm not doing this. You guys are doing this. And so basically what happens is there's this time anomaly that starts sometime far in the future of where Picard currently is, but it's a time anomaly that grows backwards in time. So it appears in all timelines, but the further back in time you go, it grows and it grows and it grows. And then Q ends up taking Picard to the distant past where the Earth is nothing but primordial soup. And he's like, we're going to watch the formation of life on this planet. And he looks at some part of the primordial soup. He's like, here's where the first microbes formed. And they look, and he's like, oh, but nothing's happening. And so it turns out this anomaly has somehow grown backwards in time and has, and whatever radiation or whatever is giving off interfered with the development of life on Earth. And thus humanity is set to go extinct because as this anomaly grows in every timeline, it just prevents humanity from ever developing in the first place. So basically what ends up having to happen is Picard has to get rid of this anomaly that he actually created by just the timelines converged at the right moment and the right time where they all did something in that exact moment, and it created this anomaly. And so he has to start basically, I believe it's Q who just kind of does this to him, like gives him the ability to jump back and forth between timelines. So he's like at his current state in life one moment, and then the next moment he's old, and he's no longer the captain of the Enterprise, and his first mate, Riker's the captain of the Enterprise, and everyone thinks he's just a crazy old man who's having dementia or whatever. And then bam, next moment he's at Farpoint Station again, and he's a brand new captain. And he's like, no, we got to take the ship. We got to take the ship this way to deal with this problem. And the crew is like, what is this guy doing? Because, this Farpoint Station was the mission they met, was their first mission together. And so he has to sort of wrangle all this stuff happening in all these different timelines, these versions of himself. And he has to wrangle everything together to make all the different versions of the Enterprise come together at the exact moment necessary to get rid of the anomaly.
Oh, that's really
and
cool.
Avoid humanity's extinction. So it's like one of those things. It's like you wouldn't expect that sort of depth from a TV series, especially back in the day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I was looking up here. The show ran from 87 all the way to 94, so about 8 seasons, I want to say. I could be wrong. It says somewhere down here. But anyway, yeah, and I think, we might as well hear Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Marina Sirtis, and Michael Dorn were in all, let's see, how many episodes? 176.
Yeah.
That's a lot of episodes.
I'm pretty sure I've seen them all.
Yeah.
Not through any special effort on my part, because I think one time, like 10, 15 years ago, probably, I watched when they used to be on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. But back in the day when Netflix actually had things on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was on Netflix, and I think I watched the first up to season 4 or something. But at that point, I think I'd already seen the whole series anyway. I watched this series so many times just on reruns of it that I think I've seen every episode, and some episodes hundreds of times.
Paramount Plus, like you were saying.
Yeah,
earlier.
Paramount. Now it's on Paramount Plus, but yeah, back in the day, it was when it first appeared on streaming services. It was on Netflix. I think that was one of those series that I think was one of Netflix's big sellers back in the day.
Yeah, dude.
It was we have the next generation. We got all the episodes.
Every single one. And I remember hearing things about, because I don't think I ever went to Netflix to watch them, but I remember hearing that the aspect ratio was different. It went to a pseudo widescreen kind of thing.
I don't know about that.
I remember hearing and seeing comparisons online when the Blu-rays came out. I remember seeing comparisons of Netflix's and then the new Blu-rays that came out. And there was a difference with the original DVDs too. There was a difference of aspect ratio, and you couldn't change it on Netflix. So it didn't keep the full 4:3. Same thing with, not Seinfeld didn't have that. but definitely next generation at some point. They might have changed it later on.
I mean, it was shot in a wider aspect ratio than 4:3.
Yeah.
And then they cut it down to 4:3 for the broadcast. But
like we saw in Mr. Plinkett's video.
Yeah. So the Blu-rays are probably the full aspect ratio as it was shot.
Oh, interesting.
And I wonder if the Netflix versions, like,
I think it's zoomed in a little or something like that.
They tried to do like a stretch it or whatever.
Yeah, stretch it. Yeah.
To make it, because,
you can do that,
It kind of makes sense too, because like old TV shows, really stick out on a widescreen television.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind the black bars on the side, but for some people, they just can't deal with them at all.
Yeah.
Like I
I'd
remember,
rather see wide people. I need some wide people on my screen because I need those black bars filled up.
I remember back in the day, like when movies on DVD started, they made widescreen DVDs.
Yeah.
But like most televisions were still 4:3.
Yep.
I remember back in the day, like, my parents would get so, like, just upset about the black bars being on the screen because we were watching widescreen DVDs on a CRT,
CRT, yep.
And I was always like, that's the full frame of the movie.
Exactly. It's full frame.
That's the whole picture.
Yeah.
It's like the black bars are there just because the picture's wider than the screen, but my protest fell on deaf ears, and my dad would go to the Zoom or whatever just to get rid of the black bars.
Cinephiles are screaming at your dad somewhere,
But yeah, so I personally never had an issue with the black bars, as because if you're watching something in an aspect ratio that doesn't match the aspect ratio of your TV, there's got to be black bars somewhere, so that you can get the whole picture.
Exactly, because that's what they filmed it in.
Yeah, so like it's either you can get, if you want to watch an old 4:3 show on a modern TV and you want the whole picture, you got to have the black bars on the side. Or if you've got a 4:3 TV and you want to watch it in widescreen, you got to have the black bars on the top and the bottom. Either way, to get the full picture, you got to have the black bars. And I just came to terms with that because I wanted to see the full picture.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, they just can't deal with the black bars. Like, it's something in their brain, maybe that sees the black bars and they're like, there's something wrong here. Like, I'm not seeing what I should because I'm seeing the black bars or something. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people just hate the black bars. So I can imagine Netflix being like in bringing the next generation to their streaming platform. Because this would have been probably, because like Netflix was probably the first.
I think it was
the first exposure a lot of people had to watching old TV shows on their widescreen TVs.
Yeah.
So I can really see that some, like when they decided to bring TNG to Netflix, someone's like Netflix, we gotta zoom in or stretch the picture or something to get rid of those black bars because people aren't gonna like it if we have the black bars on the side of the screen. You know what
that reminds me of? I remember when my mom and dad first got their Blu-ray player. We're talking late. We're talking like 2016, 2017. They got their Blu-ray player and they started collecting Blu-rays very recently. And it just drove me crazy because we're watching like Avatar on Blu-ray, right? And she's like, "Where are the black bars?" And I'm like, "Mom, it's 16:9. It's filling the whole, and it might be some pseudo IMAX resolution that's like halfway IMAX. It's filling the whole screen." And she's like, "But no, it's zoomed in. I need my black bars." I'm like, "Mom, it's filling in the whole screen."
See, that's the opposite problem.
That's the opposite problem.
she probably
she's a very appreciator in your sense.
She
wants the black bars.
She wants the full picture.
Yeah. We were never any of these full screen kind of people in my family.
She wanted the full picture, so she has the same experience of widescreen becoming a thing on DVDs, but still watching them on CRTs. And the black bars were the sign that you had the full picture on the screen.
Correct.
So I guess in her mind, like,
it's not the whole picture.
It's not the whole picture unless it has the black bars.
Yeah, and that's how we were conditioned as kids. Like, no, you don't want the full screen version. You want widescreen. Like, I remember being at Walmart and grabbing a DVD back in the day, and I bring it to her, and she's like, no, I don't want that one. Put it back. Give me the widescreen version of The Mummy 2, please. And I'm like, okay, Mom.
Yeah, see, growing up was the exact opposite experience. Anytime both versions were available, my dad was insistent that we get the full screen version because he didn't want no black bars on the screen.
Ooh, no black bars. We don't allow that in our household, you know. No black bars in our household. It's interesting. Like, I still have vivid memories. I think when I was 3 years old, our cousins from LA came up. My Aunt Kathy and my Uncle Dan came up, and they brought with them a big ass TV. Like, we're talking big, tubular, square, massive TV. And I think she got it on like a deal or something. And then when they came up and visited, Mom's like, I'll pay for it. And then we had this huge ass TV in the living room for years. It was there for years. And I think it was like late 2000s we got rid of it. But it lasted a long time. Then we actually got a widescreen TV. And then we got like, we could see the full picture in our DVDs, you know. So it's pretty interesting. I want to recommend to the audience. I love the parodies and the memery of Next Generation. It's endless, like a lot of things. But you got to look up Make It So around Christmas time on YouTube. You got to look up Captain Picard sings Make It So. And it's just somebody who took a whole bunch of words from the series and put all the words from different characters saying it together to the lyrics of Let It Snow. And it's hilarious. In fact, and then when it says Let It Snow, it's Make It So. And it's like, make it so. Make it so.
Oh, speaking of memory, and I'm reminded of something I saw a long time ago, which always makes me laugh. I think it was filmed at like a con or something.
Yeah.
And it was Brent Spiner doing his impersonation of Patrick Stewart. And like, it sounds really good.
Dang.
And he was, well, the really funny thing is, apparently this was a thing even back in the day. Like, because he recounted a story where he called Patrick Stewart's wife in doing that impersonation and told her that, like, you know, oh, I'm not going to be home at the normal time. The shoot went really late, you know, and so I won't be home until way later tonight. Dude. And I guess her response was just like, "Stop it, Brent."
That's great.
Like, she knew.
She knew, yeah. That's awesome. Wow. You know what? Last thing I'll say about it is there was I think it was a Sacred Symbols episode I was listening to years ago, and somebody wrote in saying, yeah, I really wanted to get through Next Generation as fast as I humanly possibly could. So what I did was I watched it on my desktop computer, and I installed a custom Google extension that enabled Netflix to play at 4 times speed. And this crazy person watched The Next Generation at 4 times speed. Like, imagine listening to an audiobook at 2 times speed. That's almost too fast for myself. Imagine watching classically trained stage actor Patrick Stewart, and then you watch Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner at 4 times speed.
Why would you want to do that?
He just wanted to multitask and watch it as fast as possible.
Like, that sounds like...
Sounds like hell.
Yeah, it's like, why even watch the show? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like all the effort you put into watching the show at 4 times speed. It's like you might as well have not watched it. It's like How on earth could you possibly get anything out of it?
Yeah, you're turning a 27-minute or 24-minute episode of television into like 7 minutes, maybe? That's insane.
Yeah.
Are you going to retain any of that? Like, we already have an issue of people retaining memory with watching TikTok. Like, are you going to even retain any of the next generation?
Oh, that's another thing I wanted to talk about is, most shows were with the ad breaks included, totaled in at 30 minutes. Next Generation was really cool because the total space for each episode, ad breaks included, was an hour.
Oh, wow, really?
So instead of being a half an hour show, it was an hour-long show.
Oh, interesting.
So it was like...
It's a lot of ad breaks.
Well, no, it was longer. Next Generation episodes are longer than a normal show.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it wasn't... No, they didn't put half an hour's worth of ad breaks in there. Well, maybe...
Oh, it's 45 minutes. Yeah, it's a 45-minute show. Yeah.
So it was really cool because it was like... They could, the stories and characters got a lot more development than normal shows did. But it didn't feel like you were watching a movie necessarily. Like you didn't gotta turn on the Next Generation, but, I gotta make special effort to turn it on. Like, because, when you put on a movie, it's like, yeah, I'm making an effort to watch this film.
Yeah.
Because you're investing, 1.5 to 3, somewhere in that range, hours of your life into watching a film. And this was interesting because it still felt like watching a TV show.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just like the extra time, everything was just more developed. There was just more to it. It was so cool.
And it started 1987. So, I mean, I wasn't around then, but I could imagine that was kind of different for the time. But it's cool because it gets that little special treatment because it's Star Trek, Which I hope the Star Trek kind of name goes. It's funny because I don't want to talk about it anymore because we got to keep moving forward. But it's interesting how the whole brand has been tarnished and kind of destroyed in the modern sense.
Oh yeah.
Akiva Goldsman is to blame mainly for all of that. The head writer and the head creator of a lot of the new Star Trek content. But have you seen any of the Picard show, David?
No, I think I watched like a little bit of one episode. It didn't really grab me. It didn't really nothing I watched of it. Like I was just like, this is whatever. It's nothing really grabbed me. And then I ended up seeing reviews of it by people who I would generally consider to be trustworthy sources. Like if they say it's a good movie, or if they don't say it's not a good movie, then my opinion might not necessarily line up exactly with theirs, but I can have a rough expectation of how it's going to be based on what these people say. So it's I saw little bits of one episode and nothing really was connecting with me. And then I saw some reviews of it from trustworthy sources. They're it's bad. So between those two things, I was just no point in watching it.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. But what I did also hear, so one of the guys who created it was named Michael Chabon, and he wrote it with Akiva Goldsman, right? So apparently he directed all of season 3 and wrote most of season 3. And season 3 apparently is the best that the show is. It's very much a lot of nostalgia and callbacks, of course. But from what I hear, it was really, really good. Season 1's and then 2 I heard was horrible. But I heard season 3 actually redeemed the show a little bit. So I was wondering, I eventually would like to do a watch of the Next Generation and maybe get around to, if I'm interested, a little bit of Picard. But I heard season 3 is where to go, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because it also is in a new story when they go into season 3, apparently.
Interesting. So it's like,
just from what I hear,
it doesn't depend on the first 2 seasons kind of a thing?
I'm sure it does, but I feel like maybe watch a recap of season 2 going into 3, and then you're pretty much okay.
Interesting.
So it's pretty, I don't know. It sounds cool, but it's, Star Trek's.
I mean, it's a far cry from where it was.
At least it's not like Discovery or one of those shows,
Like, overall, just the Star Trek franchise has fallen very far. Because, like, for me, Next Generation was the bright spot.
Yeah.
But, like, the other series were good, too. Like Deep Space Nine, Voyager, the original series, they all had their redeeming qualities. There was a lot of great episodes in all those shows, even though for my view, Next Generation stands head and shoulders above them. But those other series were great.
Yeah.
In their own regard. There's no, like, if you want more Star Trek after watching Next Generation, like, you won't go wrong by going to Deep Space Nine or whatever. But, like, these new shows are just, like...
They're pretty bad.
There's very few, if any, redeeming qualities to them. Yeah, I
was half watching the Frontiers show that came out. Follows young Pike, Captain Pike. And I was half watching it because I was over at the parents' place, right, one Sunday afternoon. And they were watching, they're like, oh, let's watch the new show. It's like we have a trial for Paramount Plus or what have you. And I was half watching it and I could just hear the dialogue. I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. Like, this is so bad. I need to get out of here. I'm sorry. I love you, Mom and Dad, but I need to leave, But anyway, that's all I have to say about it. So, anything else on Next Generation, David?
No.
It's a good show. So yeah, Paramount Plus is where it's at. So, all right, my next pick. I don't know about you, David, but let's just do 2 each instead of 3.
Yeah, that sounds
Let's just
good.
do 2. This will be my last one, and then I have a couple honorable mentions, and we can piece through them if you want. All right, so my last pick officially would be Early Edition. So this is interesting because this was a late 90s show. I believe it was, I can look it up, but 97 to like 2000 or 2001. And it stars my boy, Kyle Chandler, as the main character. And basically, here's the pitch of the show. Tomorrow's news today. Every morning, this guy wakes up at his apartment, and at the door, he wakes up to a cat meowing and a newspaper in front of his door. He opens the door, the cat runs in, and he picks up the newspaper, and it's tomorrow's newspaper today. So that's the pitch of the show. And it's a really clever pitch, really clever concept. The show opens with Gary, Kyle Chandler's character. He's walking down the street, got some roses, got some box of chocolates for his wife. He's going to go down there. He's going to go up to his apartment. And then before he enters the front door, he looks up and he sees her in the window and he says, "Hey, honey." And then she goes up to the window. "I got you these." And then all of a sudden she throws his suitcase out the window and yep, they're getting a divorce. And so he has to, he's on his own. He's going through a divorce. She's, very bitter about it all. And he's just alone now in this world. They were married for a few years. She divorced him. Maybe he could have made better decisions, but what's done is done. And then randomly, he moves into an apartment and this cat and newspaper start fronting at his door. And as the show progresses, well, first off, before I continue that, basically Gary, he's a kind-hearted guy, a good fella. He tries to stop all the bad things that happen in the next day's newspaper. Oh, a child gets run over by a bus on this specific street in this at 403 or whatever. He runs over there at 350 and tries to find the kid, and then he finds him, saves him, and the kid doesn't get killed. Or, hey, there was a house fire. He goes and tries to prevent it. He calls a fireman first, scares off the arsonist. He runs away. Something like that. So that's the whole show.
Interesting.
And his side characters are his buddy Chuck, who's played by Fisher Stevens, which is why I love Fisher Stevens, and a friend of his who's a chick who's blind with a guide dog. And the first thing that Gary does when he gets this newspaper is goes and gambles with it on horse racing. And he ends up getting a bunch of money. And his friend, the blind girl, is like, "This is so stupid, Gary. I'm leaving." And then she leaves, and then he gets that money and then buys her a dog because he felt bad that she left, basically. And she's like, well, thanks for the dog, you know? And her character and Chuck and Gary all figure out the newspaper, and there's always a shtick of Chuck trying to steal it away from Gary to get the lottery numbers and everything, right? And as the show progresses on, you find out more about where it came from and why it's specifically Chicago Sun's Times, right? I won't spoil it, but you find out that there was a journalist at the Chicago Sun-Times, or a guy in the print shop or something, and that was his cat. And somehow, through some weird unexplained force, this paper is showing up at his door every day. And somehow he inherited it, and he has to figure out why. Really good show. David, have you ever heard of this?
I've heard the name. I have never watched it, nor did I know what it is about. What you just said is completely blindsided me. I would never have guessed that was the show. What was the show about from just hearing the name? I always was under the impression that Early Edition was some kind of like sitcom about like a newscaster or something. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah,
I highly recommend it. I'm trying to find out where you can stream it. But yeah, Kyle Chandler. For those who don't know, Kyle Chandler is my boy. And I never watched Friday Night Lights, but that was where he got really popular. He was the coach of the football team. And now he's actually just got cast in James Gunn's DCU, the DC Universe films. And he's going to be on a show called Lanterns, where he plays, what's his name? What's the main Green Lantern? Hal Jordan. He's playing Hal Jordan, this old, more veteran type Green Lantern character. And they're bringing in Jon Stewart, who's played by, I think, Aaron Pierre, who was on like that Netflix crime drama or whatever that came out last year. That was really popular. But anyway, young Jon Stewart's coming in. Old Hal Jordan's kind of teaching him the ropes.
Are they going to bring in Stephen Colbert as well?
No, not quite. Not quite yet. We'll see. Maybe he's going to play Sinestro or something, David. But I'm really excited because the same writers and the creative group behind True Detective are making this show. So it's supposed to be like not buddy cop, but it's supposed to be like a detective, kind of noir detective show. Let me really quickly type Early Edition in our handy dandy, website called justwatch.com. The show ran from 96 to 2000. The first 2 seasons are the best. After season 3, Fisher Stevens' character leaves. I'm only going to assume because he went on to go play the bad guy in Hackers. So there's that. Also, he wanted to be in more movies. It was really sad when he left. I was very, very disappointed. Apparently, you can get on Apple TV Plus. Apparently, which is really neat, which is different because last year I looked this up when I was doing a kind of a pseudo rewatch of Early Edition, and it was nowhere to stream. I was only watching it for my ripped DVDs that were my mom's originally. And I loved the show so much before I moved out of the house that she just gave them to me. She's like, you watch these all the time, so go ahead and take them. Like a nice cozy night in Jake's mind is a nice maybe cup of coffee, maybe a Dr. Pepper, one or the other. You can play some Minecraft on one monitor and watch Early Edition on the other. You get real cozy with that, you know. So, God, I love this show so much. It's such a nice, warm, frothy cup of coffee. That's just best in every single way. A little bitter because there's some sad stuff in there. David, he can't find love after he got divorced, and it's funny because he's actually a really stand-up guy as a character. So like he'll meet these women throughout the series, but like they won't have sex or anything. Like he's like, no, like whatever. Like we're trying to figure out what the newspaper is, you know, and everything. And it's kind of like, oh, he's a stand-up guy, you know, but the character that Kyle Chandler brings to Gary is super like endearing and cool. And you don't see that in any like modern TV anymore. Like just a quotes good guy, I guess, but he's trying to make a difference, but just bad stuff keeps happening to him all the time because of the paper specifically. And it's really fun to watch and interesting too. Like there's different mysteries. And David, I even forgot to mention the theme of early edition is so good. It's got them 90s flutes, David. Those wonderful, lovely, majestic, amazing 90s flutes. It goes dun 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 dun. You know, you get the piano in there, and then it goes the wano, wano, and you get the flutes, and you're like, oh, it makes me. I want to go watch it right now. Like it's that good of a show. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, anyway, Fisher Stevens leaves after season 2, and then some other side characters are introduced in season 3 or 4, and it just doesn't work. I just can't connect with them. They're not very good actors too, and. I mean, to be fair, I guess Kyle Chandler does kind of play the same character in a lot of films, but 3 and 4 are not very good seasons. The show really falls off after that. I tried to watch season 3. I couldn't get through it. I think it's okay. But season 1 and 2 are fantastic. So good. So yeah, highly recommend it. If you got Apple TV, apparently it's on there. Go and check it out. And I remember I didn't even watch this as a kid. I watched this, I think, as a teenager. My mom didn't get the DVDs until later when they released them, basically. So she's like, holy cow, they're on Amazon or whatever. And so she bought the first season and she's like, I can't believe this. I loved this show. And she said, you got to watch it. And so we watched it together, and this was just a wonderful show me and her watched. And I watch it continually today. It's so good. So early edition, check it out. Kyle Chandler, the man. So anyway, that's my last pick. But David, what do you got for your final pick?
Okay, let's see. So my second pick would probably have to be. I was debating between a couple, but I think it's gonna be Scrubs.
Oh, dang!
Yeah, Scrubs. It was.
Wow.
I believe it. I don't remember when it started. I know. I didn't watch it as a young kid, but
didn't watch it as a youngster. Probably for good reasons, we'll say.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a thing when I was.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what year it came out, but I know I wasn't like super young when it came out. I was a little bit older. But I don't remember the exact timeline, but I do remember that it was one of those things where it was like, just not only I was into it, but a lot of friends and acquaintances and just people that I was around a lot were all into the show kind of at the same time. And so it was one of those things where we would just like constantly quote it to each other. Like, your brother Thad was really into the show.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like, I remember, you know, hanging out with him, or we were like doing youth group stuff or whatever. And we would just like constantly quote Scrubs stuff at each other.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Sorry to interject. The show ran from 2001 to 2010.
Okay. That, yeah. So that would have been, I think, yeah, because I don't think I started watching it right when it came out. I think I started watching it in high school, now that I think about it more.
Okay.
But yeah, so from high school to like, basically early adulthood is when I watched it. Yeah, it was one of those kind of things that just like, it's a comedy, you know. It's like, and it's not just like your normal sitcom kind of comedy. It's like it's a very zany comedy. Like it's very out there, very absurd. And you know, I've always had more of a preference for more absurd comedies, you know.
Yeah.
I grew up watching SpongeBob, and then one of the I was exposed really early on to stuff like Monty Python,
Yeah.
So I already had a love of the more absurd side of comedy.
Yeah.
And so when Scrubs came out, it was just kind of like, it was the perfect storm of just absurd over the top comedy. And that was my thing,
And Austin Powers was thrown in there too. Just wacky.
Oh, yeah.
Real wacky.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up watching all the Austin Powers movies. So yeah, another thing that primed me for my love of absurd comedy. But yeah, and it was one of those things where it was like really absurd over the top comedy, but also because it was set in a hospital, people like got sick and died. It was like the characters were ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet they also did a really good job of conveying emotion in the more serious parts of the show. So it wasn't just
the comedy,
absurd comedy. There were actual moments in the show where you actually felt bad for what was happening to the characters, And, like you sympathized with them. So yeah, it was just a really well done show. After a little while, I think it started to kind of lose its soul a little bit because it ran for a little while.
Yeah, it was like 9 years, maybe
and
more.
So, because basically it follows, you have the main character JD, but then you also have his buddy
Chris.
Yeah, Chris Turk. And then you have another friend of his who he doesn't know previously, but he meets at the hospital when he starts working there. And they're basically all they're doing their whatever they call it, when doctors are like internships or whatever, they're basically fresh out of medical school. And so they're, working in a hospital for the first time, learning the ropes, and they're basically the lowest on the totem pole. Even the nurses are ordering them around, kind of a thing, And so it basically just follows these characters as they come from being completely fresh out of medical school, new to the hospital, to kind of finding their place in it, and eventually training up some of the newer people that come in. So, but then later on, it gets to the point where the characters' lives are in such a advanced state from where they were at the beginning. One of the characters even starts working at a different hospital, and so you only see her at certain times where she kind of comes back into the story, and she's not a mainstay who's there at the hospital day in and day out with them anymore. So it just kind of ends up coming to a place where it's it feels different, and it just, the change didn't suit it as well. It tries to become more serious, I think.
Ooh.
But it doesn't work super well. So it's definitely not a perfect show through its whole run, but it does kind of fall off after a little while in some of the later seasons. But overall it's still, I would say, totally worth a watch.
Okay. Yeah, I've always grew up with just that, and Amanda just loving that show, ceasing, unrelenting. So, they adore that show. I remember growing up and had them watching it, and I remember hanging out at their house a few times. I think it was for youth group stuff, and they would watch it. They would watch that, and they'd never watch Friends as I was hanging out, but they'd watch Scrubs. I think Mandy's go-to was Scrubs and Friends. And I watched maybe half an episode here, third of an episode there, maybe one full one time. Very, very not much exposure here. There are some funny bits that I don't quite remember entirely, but I remember laughing at the show and having a somewhat good time. But I remember at the time in my life, it wasn't really my vibe, like at all. Maybe if I look at it today, I'll probably change that mind. Just because I really had zero interest in it over the years, probably because people would just reference it and I had no idea what they're referencing. You know, it'd be like, oh, what are they talking about? Oh, it's from Scrubs. Oh, okay. You know, it just flies right over my head, you know. The only thing I really associate with Scrubs is not just the memes, but also the main Fortnite dance is based on Chris's dance in that one episode or something where he does there's like a contest for tryouts and he dances that way. And sure enough, that's the Fortnite default dance nowadays.
That's
a very random.
That's very odd.
Very random and odd.
Yeah, that's further cements in my mind that Fortnite is just terrible in every regard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it came up from a game that was a tower defense game that was a pure failure, and then it made a pseudo, somewhat working battle royale mode, and then just went up from there.
Yeah, well, also too, it was like one of the first, if I remember correctly, it was one of the first big like free-to-play multiplayer games out there.
Yeah, PUBG you had to pay for, but then this was free. So everybody's like, wait, it's free?
Yeah, Fortnite was really interesting too, because Fortnite like started off as a paid single player game.
That was co-op.
Was it co-op?
Yeah, it was a tower defense game.
Okay, I thought it was single player, but
you could play it single player.
So yeah, transition from paid tower defense game to a free multiplayer shooter.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason for its success. And nowadays, I mean, the market's oversaturated with free to play games, and given that we live in the age of microtransactions, nowadays free to play games are never truly free to play.
Yeah.
The freemium games, as they call them.
Yeah.
So I think, Fortnite probably just had in the right place, right time is my take on it.
You know the Telltale games, David?
Like the developer?
Yeah, like Telltale's The Walking Dead, for example.
I've played a little bit of The Walking Dead, and I know of some of their other games, but I never played them.
When are we getting this Telltale's Scrubs?
I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if the market is there for it, but I would play that.
Yeah. I would love to get the folks that there's some indie developers that have done some cool stuff, like Oxenfree is kind of a story-based game with I don't know, it's kind of like set in a time period and following these teenagers. There's some different indie developers that do these story type games that are getting better at it, and really good stuff is coming out of there. And the independent market, I would love for them to get whatever license they can to do Scrubs and just bring everybody back and voice the characters. Because you could totally do that. I don't know if John C. McGinley is still alive. I think he is. He should be.
John C. McGinley.
He's the guy who played Cox.
I know
Cox,
who he is. But I was like, I was going to ask, what made you think he's dead?
Probably because he's the oldest person on the show, is my guess.
He's not the oldest person on the show.
No?
No.
Shows how much I know about Scrubs. Oh, he's born in 1959. He's not that old.
He's so John C. McGinley's character he's one of the senior like doctors at the hospital, but he's not the top dog.
Oh, okay. I always thought he was or something.
So
Dr. Cox.
he's more like middle age. The oldest character
he was in 7? What? Oh yeah, that's what Point Break. That's what he's known for. Never mind.
Yeah, the oldest character is oh God, what is his name? It's Bob something. Doctor. who's like the director of the hospital is the oldest character.
There's Wen, Keith, Sullivan, Ted, Carla, Bob, Kelso.
Kelso, there we go. Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Kelso. He is, he's the oldest character on the show. He might be dead.
Let me see. Ken Jenkins is this guy's name. Yeah, he looks old. What the heck? It shows him in a movie with Kyle Chandler, of all things.
Wow.
Wow.
What a crossover.
I don't know if he's dead or not. He was
Is he
born in
alive?
1940.
So
Let me go to Google.
He's definitely up there if he isn't dead.
Ken Jenkins. He is 84. He's still alive.
All right.
If he's not alive when they make that story game of Scrubs, Choose Your Own Adventure game, get Jim Cummings to play Ken Jenkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darkwing Duck himself,
Or get
Clancy Brown?
what's his face? We were just talking about this earlier.
Who?
The guy who plays Homer Simpson.
I don't remember. That's another spot that I'm blanking on is Simpsons. I'm not a big Simpsons
I
person.
can't remember. Well,
Let me
neither
look it
am
up. Homer.
Neither am I, but
Voice actor.
I know the name of the voice actor. I just can't.
All right, let's see. I'm going to say the first word. It starts with a D.
Is it Dana something?
Ooh, it's Dan something.
Oh, Dan. Oh God, I know this, and I'm not even a big Simpsons fan.
Yeah.
I was like, this is
Last name starts with a C.
Dan. Oh, what is it? I almost said Crenshaw. I was like, just because he's been in the news,
Just
you
because
know.
he's been in the news. Dan
What is it?
It's Dan Castellaneta. Castellaneta? Yeah, Dan Castellaneta. Dan Castellaneta.
Okay.
Maybe there's two. Homer
I think
actors.
you're reading it wrong, but now, yeah, I know.
CAST, so cast, and then ELLA, Ella, Castellaneta.
Yeah, I think
Something like
I think
that.
that's what it is. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
that's. But yeah, that's that guy.
Dan.
That guy. We were talking about him.
Yeah, sometimes
Earlier.
this weekend, yeah.
Because. Oh yeah, he
can't remember
replaced
why.
Robin Williams.
That's right.
He replaced
Aladdin.
Robin Williams in Aladdin because
Yeah.
what happened is, Robin Williams did Aladdin for because he was like easily the biggest star in that film. And he could have commanded quite a huge sum of money to do that role. But he essentially took a large pay cut because he really believed in the project and he just wanted to see it succeed. So he's like, yeah, I'll do this. And you don't, I'll do it for a low salary.
No, like a minimum SAG payment or something.
And but he had one condition was that he didn't want his voice being used in promotional materials for the film.
Yeah.
He's like, if I'm going to do this for rock bottom prices, I don't want you guys to take advantage of that and use my voice in the marketing materials. And Disney agreed to that and then ended up going back on that.
Oh, okay. Yep. Keep going.
And Robin Williams was furious and declined to appear in the sequels as a result of that.
Well, I'm sorry to say, David, but unfortunately, I'm right. Dan Castellaneta, or whatever his name is, played the genie after the first Aladdin. But Robin Williams came back for King of Thieves.
Did he?
He did. I'm reading it right here on Google. Yeah.
I was wrong.
And you know what? I think, because I used to watch the old Aladdin animated show they had on like Toon Disney or whatever.
Yeah.
Great show, by the way, from what I remember. That and the Tarzan one, legit. And Dan, I think, did the voice for him, obviously, in those. And he did pretty good. Like, it's not Robin Williams, but I always liked that performance. And Dan's a good actor, so yeah. So
I'm surprised he came back for
I know. I can't remember the story behind it, but yeah, I know. Because when I watch it, I'm like, dude, that's Robin Williams. Like, that's not Dan. It's definitely Robin Williams.
I don't know. If it was
sand, it's everywhere.
If it was Robin Williams, then he was like, he must have been like high on painkillers or something. Because, I mean, like he was that whole movie was utterly forgettable.
What?
But like he was.
Oh man!
I mean, it was made for. It was a direct.
Was
a direct to video.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was both of them were direct to video.
Both of them were.
Both of the sequels were direct to video. So it's like it's clear like not a lot of effort and time was put into it. But like you'd think that Robin Williams being in it would have been a bright spot, but I don't. I mean, I watched King of Thieves a ton as a kid.
Okay. Same.
I had like a
the VHS.
I didn't have like the clamshell, but I had the
the tape.
I had
copy.
Yeah, like somebody recorded it on
recorded version. Yeah,
on a blank VHS and gave it to me.
Nice.
I don't know who it was. It might have actually been your sister Angela.
Oh yeah. She's been ripping VHSs, ripping CDs, and I don't know what she does today. That's the same thing. But yeah, she used to do that for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have been her who actually gave it to me. But yeah,
that's cool.
I watched that a lot as a kid. I think because I liked Sean Connery as
that's what's up.
as the King of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just had. I mean, just because Sean Connery is cool, which I didn't actually know it was Sean Connery until much later.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
but. You know, Sean Connery is cool even when you don't know that it's Sean Connery. And so I think that's the only thing that really drew me to it is so I watched, and you know, it was like, that was just what you did back in the day when you were a little kid is like, you just like looked at your VHSs that you'd seen them all a million times. You're like, I want to watch a movie. Which one do I want to see for the umpteenth time, you know?
Yeah.
So I watched it a lot, but I don't remember the genie being like, because his performance in the original was like the standout of the whole film.
Oh, dude. Totally.
You know, and then the character was utterly forgettable. Not that Dan Castellaneta, whatever his name is.
Yeah. Castellaneta.
Did a bad job by any stretch of the imagination. I think most of it was the writing wasn't there, and also Robin Williams' fantastic improv skills played a big part in it, in bringing the character to life in the original movie. So, like, yeah, utterly forgettable in the second one, and in the third one, yeah, I really don't remember anything about his performance that stood out to me. So I guess I always assumed that Robin Williams just never came back because I don't remember anything stand out about his performance in that film. I remember like one line, and it was, you know, when the thieves are like attacking the palace or whatever, and Genie's there and he's like dispatching them in, you know, kooky Genie-esque ways. He does a little bit where he like morphs into Tom Hanks sitting on a park bench, and he's like, "Mom always said magic's like a box of chocolates. Never know what you're gonna get." Which even as a kid, I could tell that was just a really lame joke.
I love the beginning where he's introducing everybody and he's like, "Who are you?" And it's Thor, and he's like, "I'm Thor." And he's like, "What are you again?" He's like, "Well, it hurts." Like, "I'm Thor." "You're who?" "Well, it hurts," you know. And then like, "Wait, there's somebody through the crowd. Who is it?" It's Moses.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh, so good.
The moment that really sticks out in my memory about that was like he like, you know, he's dispatching these thieves that are attacking the palace or whatever, and he stops and like grabs one of them and hugs him and pulls out a camera. He's like, oh, it's a Kodiak moment instead of a Kodak moment. And then this bear comes in from off screen roaring. And he's like, someone get this bear out of there. You know?
That totally flew over my head. I didn't get that until just now.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, because he says Kodiak instead of Kodak.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and which that actually contributed to me confusing Kodak and Kodiak when I was really young.
Oh, that's great.
Like, I thought for a second, when I was really young, I thought that somehow that like the Kodak cameras were named after the bears or something. And then, you know.
That's great. I love that. That's awesome.
But yeah. So now that I think about it, there's moments I remember, but nothing that really wowed me like in the first movie.
Yeah.
Where it's just like even as a kid.
Yeah.
Like
the animation's definitely worse than the original. For sure.
Yeah. Like even as a kid, like I could tell that Robin Williams' performance in that movie was something special.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like lightning in a bottle.
You know.
Or excuse me, a genie in a lamp, as they say.
So yeah, it was just like, yeah, even as kooky and weird as the genie was in that third movie, it's just like didn't grab me in the same way. So I guess I just kind of assumed that it had to have not been Robin Williams because it wasn't Robin Williams in the second one, and both left me equally unimpressed in the genie department.
I want to get Allie, Chelsea, and Lexi on, because did you ever see the animated show on Toon Disney?
Yes, I did.
You did. I remember watching that as a kid and being really creeped out by some of the stuff in that show specifically. Not the Hercules animated show or the Little Mermaid one or what have you, but specifically the Aladdin series. I remember there was like somebody cloned Jasmine at some point, or some mystical thing happened where there's two Jasmines. And like the wizard there's a wizard that tries to kill the cloned Jasmine and the real Jasmine, and Aladdin has to save either one. There's like some weird mystical magic stuff that happens at some point. It got kind of dark, actually. And then the series finale was the movie Return of Jafar, which I remember watching just a few years ago, a little bit of it, and the animation's horrible. It's straight to TV film, obviously.
Yeah, that movie sucks.
However, King of Thieves, I will defend the animation. It's not as good as the original, but it's a big step up from Return of the Jafar. There's actual shading. There's actual more personality and effort put into the character models, or excuse me, the character designs and the animations. Because if you look at Return of Jafar, it's just like the show. Like it's just the show. That's all it is. But there is more effort put into King of Thieves, which is surprising for a straight to VHS, straight to home video Disney movie. So thank God it's not like, Brother Bear 2 or something, So anyway, Scrubs. Let's get back to Scrubs for a second. 9 seasons. You can watch on Hulu and you can purchase it on Apple. So there's that for you. Oh, Peacock as well. So you can get it on Hulu and Peacock. All of them. You watch Dr. Cox on Peacock. So, woo! Lots of stuff there. Yeah, all 9 seasons. So that's cool. And the series there's actually a series that Kyle Chandler and Ken Jenkins were both in together.
Interesting.
2 seasons from 1991 to 1993, named Homefront, a World War II period romance drama series.
Interesting.
And I have to correct myself. Homefront is not streamable anywhere. You can't find it anywhere to purchase online or stream, unfortunately. And the same, unfortunately, goes with, in terms of streaming, the same goes with Early Edition. You can't stream it anywhere. Not even on like, Peacock's the NBC Universal one, right? So they own that. I think they do. I could be wrong. I think it was on CBS or ABC. Could have been ABC. But anyway, regardless, Early Edition is something you cannot stream anywhere. So it's like really sad. And that's something that we could probably talk on a different episode about. And we've talked about media, what's it called?
Preservation
and stuff, and how a huge bummer it is that you can't get, like, a lot of stuff's kind of lost. There's that one snow movie about Sean Astin almost getting killed by Bruce Campbell. And I can't remember what it's called, but Riff Tracks recently made fun of it, and now it's free on YouTube to watch with Riff Tracks. So there's that. But there's just some stuff that is like kind of just gone, and it's just unfortunate. You can buy early edition on DVD on Amazon. There's always plenty of stock there. Highly recommend that, but I highly recommend Scrubs apparently too. So
yeah, that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, sucks when these shows that were so great, like companies just drop them and they're like, oh, we don't care anymore. I had that experience with an anime called Darker Than Black. Basically, whatchamahoo's, it was on Netflix to begin with, and that's where I watched it originally. And then was it the not Crunchyroll, but what's the company that they partnered with?
Funimation.
Yeah, Funimation. It was on Netflix through Funimation, but then Funimation lost the rights to the first season specifically. Because the second season's weird. It's almost like a different show entirely. And yeah, so it was just lost essentially. I think it's back on. I think you can stream the first season now, but for a while it was just lost. It was just gone. And it was like, it was one of the best anime series I've ever watched. Yeah. And it's just like nowhere to be found. Like some of the shows, someone will like upload it to YouTube, and you know, the powers that be will decide that they don't care enough to remove it, you know? And so sometimes you get lucky, but with this, you didn't even have that. So like I ended up buying, I think spending way too much money to get season 1 on DVD, because it's like, I have to have this show. I have to watch this again at least once. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird times we live in with, there's I think a movie called, I think it's George Harrison or something, another Sean Astin movie that I looked up, and it's lost its time. I remember seeing it on eBay, and now you can't even find it on eBay. Like there's like very few places I can think of to search to see if I can purchase it. But thankfully with piracy, everything's fine. So
as long as you're willing to sail the high seas,
if you can sail the high seas, you can get some mighty fine things there. So that's probably like the best way, honestly, to watch early edition. If you don't want to, if you can't buy the DVD, then, or if you don't have a DVD player, because those are kind of hard to come by nowadays, even if you have a Blu-ray player. You know, I think the only reason you'll have one is if you have a PS5 with the disc drive, and you might not have one with that. So anyway, before we end today, David, I did want to go over a couple honorable mentions. My third pick was going to be Monk. And I don't know if you ever watched it with Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah,
that was going to be my third pick. And I love Monk so much. And I bought the complete collection on DVD, and it's just such a good show, man. And Tony Shalhoub, dude, he makes that show what it is to his strength and everybody else's. Like it's really dang good.
Yeah, Tony Shalhoub is great. And it's kind of funny too how he does like the neurotic sort of OCD thing. Yeah. And like that's just a character he's playing, but it's like he does such a convincing job of it. You almost like think like, did they hire like a neurotic OCD actor to play this role or something? Because he really comes off like he did. It's not like it. I mean, it's obviously there's hilarious bits to it. Yeah. But like, you know, he really comes off like something he's like really, really struggling with. Yeah. It doesn't come off as like a caricature of like mental illness or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. It's done in a very tasteful way, like not overdone as well. Because I remember hearing back in the day, that's one of the reasons they picked Tony, is because they said every other actor came in and overdid it. They overdid the OCD thing or the mental thing or what have you. You know, they overdid every aspect of it. But then Tony Shalhoub came in and did exactly that thing with his hands. And then they saw that and they said, that's exactly what we're looking for. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So love Monk. I think it went a little long. I feel like also it didn't end well. However, it's a great journey. So And then I have some honorable mentions. Stargate SG-1. David, did you ever watch Stargate?
I watched the original movie a lot. I watched a little bit of SG-1.
Yeah.
Not much.
No. Oh, man. This was my Next Generation growing up. Like, I loved watching Next Generation, but this was the thing my parents would watch every night was SG-1. This was their show. So I remember growing up with that a lot. But not much, huh? So,
yeah, no.
Yeah. Also wrote Full House, but I feel like everybody picks Full House when talking about these kind of topics, you know?
Full House is meh to me.
Yeah.
Like,
it was fun as a kid.
I know I didn't even care for it as a kid. A lot, it just kind of bored.
It had to earn your suffering, David, you know, like we described in our peak analysis podcast on the music, you know?
It just kind of bored me. Like, I don't know, it was just boring to me. I didn't connect with any of the characters really. I like so many people there's so many people I know who love Full House, and I'm just like, not my thing.
Yeah. I also had Mystery Science Theater 3000 as another pick. I just grew up watching that show so much, like an unhealthy amount of Mystery Science Theater, probably because of Angela. Shout out to you, Angie. That and Mad TV for her. She would just show a ton of that to us. So probably more than we probably should have been exposed to.
Yeah. I remember watching Mad TV as a kid and being like, should I be watching this?
Well, Sasso, what are you doing on there? And then I had like Magnum PI and Psych, but like I love those shows, but I'm not like super nostalgic over them. So
yeah.
Did you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I do. So one would have been SpongeBob for me. Ooh. I watched a lot of SpongeBob growing up, but I didn't watch the whole show. I watched up until I think the first movie came out. So it's somewhere in the like 3 or 4 seasons, I think.
Oh, really?
Like, I don't remember exactly how many seasons I watched, but it was basically like after the first movie came out, it was like almost like a different show. So I just lost interest in it entirely. But yeah, those first seasons I watched a ton of, and like I think that's part of the reason that I loved absurd comedies so much is watching that. It's like there's like it's just one of those things too. It's like I got to know those the show so well that it's like it's really funny now that like SpongeBob is like one of the common like meme languages now. So it's like it's really funny seeing SpongeBob memes, and I'm like, I feel like I'm extra fluent in SpongeBob memes because I watch the show so much.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
I love how it's been memed, but I feel like it's almost nearly over memed a little bit, you know? No, it has been over memed. That's a fact, but SpongeBob memes they're something else. They're pretty good.
I mean, the depths of it have not been mined. I mean, there's still more to go. There's still more memery to be mined. Another honorable mention for me would be Burn Notice.
Oh yeah,
that was a really, really cool show. I liked watching. I think I watched it when I was in high school, but it starred Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. He was a side character.
But he was one of the stars.
He was one of the stars. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't remember who the main guy's name was, but yeah, that was actually my first exposure to Bruce Campbell.
Really?
Was Burn Notice.
That's cool.
And
the main guy was Jeffrey Donovan. That's his name. So yeah, it's a good show. USA, man, they had that, Psych, Monk, all the good detective stuff. So anyway, we'll continue. Sorry.
But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to mention was just SpongeBob and Burn Notice. I didn't really have any honorable mentions picked out, but then like I think I was kind of torn between Scrubs and SpongeBob. And then so like talking about it in terms of like our main picks. So I was like, I went with Scrubs for my main pick. And so I thought, I was like, I might as well talk a little bit about SpongeBob at least, since I watched a crap ton of it back in the day. And then when you were talking about Monk and Psych, that kind of triggered my memory. I was like, oh, Burn Notice. I used to watch that show a lot back in the day.
Yeah, my mom loved Burn Notice. She's never a Psych person. She loved Monk, but Burn Notice was her thing. She loved that, and she loved Bruce Campbell because she loves Bruce Campbell just so much. And she's never seen Evil Dead, David.
It doesn't seem like it would be her kind of movie.
I know, but sometimes I tell her, hey, that Evil Dead show, it's got that Bruce Campbell in it, She's like, I know, Briscoe County Jr., but you know what? No, thank you. Which kind of leads me into things I really want to watch. I just have a few written, and one of those is Briscoe County Jr. Have you ever heard of that show?
No.
It's like one season show, Bruce Campbell's cowboy series, where they make fun of modern day times, where like they have different inventors. Basically, it's like Bruce Campbell's a cowboy, and he's like a cowboy. He's a very famous cowboy, and all this kind of stuff. And him and his partner go through the West, and they meet different inventors along the way and different people. And these people are like, oh, I invented something. It's called the steam powered engine, and it's like 50 years before it was even introduced. Or no, it's like they'll invent stuff like it's more modern. And they'll be like, this is the concept, and they'll make fun of it and stuff like that. There's another show called, I think it was Jack of All Trades, that Bruce Campbell had, where it was, again, a one-season show. He's a pirate this time with a love interest, and it's just a kooky comedy about him and just going through it. It's really interesting. So, but yeah, Briscoe County Jr., X-Files. Never seen it. I really would love to dive into it. There's a video out there from Upper Echelon on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he kind of comments on political and cultural stuff, makes little video essays about him. And he talked about episodes in X-Files that correlate with today's current political climate or current scientific climate. It's really interesting. If you go and look it up, I can't remember what it's called, but Upper Echelon X-Files, if you type that in on YouTube. And he even brings up a storyline about aliens, a storyline about stuff doing with a vaccine, and it kind of connects to COVID stuff. It's really interesting. But yeah, X-Files, dude, like, I remember hearing so many wonderful things about this, and I just would love to dive into it. I don't even know where it's streaming, but I don't even know where it is streaming at the moment, but I'd love to dive into that. Did you ever watch X-Files?
No. I'd always heard about it growing up, but I was confused on what it was supposed to be. So I never like sought it out, Yeah. So I just never ended up watching it.
Yeah, my mom's got some interesting DVDs in here. There's a Moonlighting in here with Bruce Campbell. That was his actor, big debut. Mork and Mindy's in here. Taxi, just a bunch of random stuff, and some Gilligan's Island, Hawaii Five-0, a bunch of old stuff as well. So the last one would be West Wing. I go back and forth on this because it's on Netflix, and it's always been on Netflix. And it's just sitting there in my watch list, and I'm like, dude, I want to watch that. It's got Dole Hill from Psych in it. This was his first big thing that he was notable for. It's got, of course, Martin Sheen in it, But I look at it and I'm like, as much as I know about politics, as much as I hear about this show, that it's, it's very inaccurate for a lot of things. It's like, it just kind of discourages me from wanting to watch it, basically. Just because of the current political climate we're in, it's not accurate, but I think it sounds fun. I would love to watch it. So basically the pitch to me of it was in the modern day here. This was a couple months ago. It's politics, but with good intentions. And it's oh, okay.
Interesting.
That's I don't know about that.
I think I caught bits and pieces of one episode way back in the day, but it never really interested me.
Yeah.
So I never pursued it any further. Yeah. I'm trying to think of shows that I want to watch, and it's really hard because that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because I'm so just set in my ways regarding television now. Like, I don't really want to watch any shows that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I can think of one that I started watching, watched like a couple episodes of, but never actually sat down and watched any significant chunk of it that I would like to pick back up someday and actually watch it for real is Twin Peaks.
Ooh, okay.
I remember
I'll watch it with you.
I've never played the game, but I saw saw someone else the game Deadly Premonition.
Oh yeah.
I never played it, but I saw somebody else playing it on YouTube, and like it's a bizarre, zany game, but it's also very intriguing, like the concept of it. And so when I heard that it was very influenced by Twin Peaks, I was like, oh, I gotta seek that out. And I don't remember why I didn't get very far in it, but I do want to revisit that at some point and actually watch it all the way through.
Yeah, I remember when David Lynch passed away this last year. Or was it early this year? I think it was January, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so when he passed away, Twitter was chock full of just clips from Twin Peaks, montages, homages, love letters, everything. And I really got exposed to a lot of things that fans truly appreciate about that show, and then also kind of go gaga over. And I'm kind of intrigued now. Like, I really want to see it, and the sequel series that they did. And I love me some good McLaughlin, or whatever that guy's name is, the guy who played, the original OG Paul Atreides, love that guy. He's super cool. But yeah, there's so many things. If you look up some other video games like Heavy Rain, as well as Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human, those games are very much David Lynch encoded as well. And it's so cool to see his effect on so many type of media. And it just makes me want to watch his shows and his creations, because a lot of people took inspiration from that into what we have today. So it's a little bit of history, even, for the stylistic choices people make in modern movies and whatnot. So, yeah, I'd be down to watch it. But yeah, I wonder where do you stream it?
I was watching it on, this was a while back. It was on Amazon Prime.
Oh,
like, it was free to watch on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it is any longer though.
Let me look that up really quick. Justwatch.com. If anybody's curious, justwatch.com is like a repository for where you can stream any piece of content. So like I've been looking it up the whole podcast, and you can type in Scrubs, see where you're streaming, see where you have to pay for it, see where you can rent it. There's a whole list when you type it in. So let's type in Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks 1990. You can watch it now on Paramount Plus.
Oh,
so perfect.
Perfect.
You just got the trial.
You know what I was thinking is maybe at some point we should do a Twin Peak analysis.
Oh. I was actually thinking about that when I started seeing the show. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I didn't know, I wasn't going to call it that, but I mean, we might as well have to. We have to now. So yeah, 2 seasons, and then the revival. I don't know how many seasons that is, but I mean, I'm down. Sure. So, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bid you adieu. We'll see you later. And let's see. We're unfortunately not titled Tomorrow's Podcast Today, but we should be. And when we do get to that point, remember to Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.